What's up, everybody? Good to see you and welcome back to the Potato Boat YouTube channel. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. If you've been around the channel for any amount of time, you know that we have played a lot and made a lot of guides for and find stuff for The Forest. And it's a game that we absolutely love and I've played hundreds of hours on. As well as we've met a ton of people here in the channel who have had the same experience, love the game, played it a ton and all that. But we've also been asked, would you recommend getting this game when it's on sale or whatever, just regularly here in 2022? And today I am going to do my best to tell you whether I think The Forest is worth here in 2022. Now, before we get started, don't forget, please go down below and hit that subscribe button. It means the world to me and I would greatly appreciate it. Also leave a thumbs up. That would be awesome for YouTube's sake. And let us know down in the comments below if you agree with us. Would you recommend The Forest to somebody in 2022? Now, as a small little intro piece to let you know what we're getting into, game again is called The Forest. It's by Endnight Games and it has an overwhelmingly positive review count on Steam, above 300,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews. Also on Steam, it is only like $20 and goes on sale a bunch for less than 10, which is already tempting in and of itself. Now, if you've not heard about the game, as a short little brief summary, this is a horror survival game where you take place as the sole survivor of a plane crash in what I believe is the Canadian wilderness that is amongst a cannibal community. And that is all that I'm going to give you. It is awesome. And I'll probably spoil the game more on later as we go. So spoiler warning ahead. Now, when I sat down and tried to figure out how I was going to put together whether this game was worth it or not here in 2022, I ended up coming up with 5 categories that we're going to use to rate this game. Those are graphics, gameplay, story, replayability, and then just that fun factor type deal that, just some games you play and it just has something special about it. So those are the 5 categories we're going to get into today, and we're going to start with the graphics. This was released in 2018 and it has gone through a plethora of changes and updates and upgrades. It's released on console, it's done all kinds of stuff. So this game has done what it can do to improve. However, all that being said, this is not the most pretty game you are ever going to play. It's not a bad looking game by any means at all, but it kind of feels really unoptimized in certain areas. Some areas feel to chug a little bit more than others. This is coming from my experience as a PC player. Transitions from the above ground world to the below ground world can kind of chug and be a little heavy. If you actually walk around and look at the foliage and the ocean and the render distance and stuff, you'll notice it's all a little bit jank, and not to mention that there's weird little bugs sometimes with stuff kind of tapping and colliding into each other. All that being said, it kind of creates an aesthetic for the game that is it just feels unique. It feels correct for the game and what you're doing. You're this man in this wilderness fighting against cannibals with anything else that he can pick up. Also, there's mutants, and also God might be involved, or eldritch beings. It's kind of crazy, and so the graphics themselves kind of fit that feel. So if you're looking for a survival game that has top edge, cutting edge, great graphics, this is probably not the game for you. But if graphics aren't a big portion of your experience, much like myself, then this game they're not terrible. And like I said, it kind of creates an aesthetic. So for me, this one will get a pass. And then we get to what is, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest, most important things when it comes to a survival game, and that is the gameplay. And I gotta say, there are so many elements. Just a spoiler alert, this gets a full-on pass for me because I love so many elements of the gameplay in this game. First off, it's not hardcore survival, and I know there are some people that's why you play survival games, and I'm going to go ahead and let you know up front, there is a hard mode, a hard survival mode that takes a lot more of that kind of stuff into account. But most of the time when you're playing this game, it's not super serious about all that kind of stuff. Instead of a weight-based inventory system, We have a count-based inventory system, which, dear God, I love not accidentally picking up a leaf and becoming the fattest man to walk the earth, moving at a whopping 1 step a year. I'm super glad that's not the case in this game. You can just hold X amount of each item, and it's a pretty expansive inventory anyway. Also, the crafting is super easy and intuitive. You just click on materials to put them on the mat. You can hover the gear and see like what you need to make each thing. It's really, really quick. And if you know what you need, you throw it on there, you complete it, and you have it ready. I have found myself using crafting in the middle of combat if I can find myself a few spare seconds. So I love that the crafting isn't like super long and time based. It's instant recipe based crafting, and I love that. Also, along the not hardcore survival stuff, that's not really harsh on the survival mechanics. It doesn't feel like you constantly need food and water, and just 10 minutes later you need food and water. They are important and you do have to manage them, but it's not a super pressing all the time type deal. There's also a few different like status effects like cold and being on fire, and even those are not like super punishing. You're not like, oh, I have a flambéed leg, you're permanently gonna walk 2% slower. Oh, I got bit by a spider in the woods, you're gonna die unless you find one specific thing. I personally don't come to these kinds of games for that type of deal, so this is a big plus for me when it comes to the gameplay. Then when you kind of get outside like those core mechanics, get into like the world, I love the enemies that they have in the world. They're not necessarily the most variety. Most of the time you just have variations on like 6 or 7 different types of enemies, but they act, I love how they've programmed their AI. They're not necessarily the super smartest, but they do really cool things. They patrol, they attack in groups, they try to sneak up on you, they send armies and waves after you. If you don't kill an entire patrol, they'll warn others and you'll experience more frequent attacks. They'll climb trees to try to get you lose sight so they can ambush you. They do really cool things, and it adds a nice little creepy horror element to the gameplay when, you know, you're walking through the woods and you just hear skeetering and then something jumps out of the dark to attack you. I love the enemies. I love the mutants. They're horrifying. They're just extremely gross and powerful. And when they come at you, whether they're barreling at you or their spider legs are in the air or they're flopping around like a wet noodle, it's honestly, I love what they've done. So they've made the enemies fun to interact with. They've made the enemies interesting to fight. They've made those patterns just really a really nice gameplay loop of combat. And on top of all that, they empower you to not only just like craft your own stuff, and it's got a cool crafting selection stuff, but there's plenty of stuff to find as well. And it adds this whole another like reward mechanic. If you are diligent and you search these caves and you dig down through, you might find yourself a katana, or you might find yourself a modern bow or an axe, you know, really cool stuff. Like, it rewards you for exploring the game. And honestly, that is just all those gameplay loops put together make for an extremely fun gameplay experience. So for me, this one also gets a pass, and I would recommend anyone to play based on the gameplay. Now, the next section I want to cover is the story. And this one is a little weird because I love the story, but it's not necessarily in depth. It's a pretty simple story. There's a lot of layers you can uncover, but in base, you're a man who's crashed, and you guys got knocked, spoilers, you got knocked out of the sky by an experimental group who's trying to save their kid. So they want your kid to put in a machine to revive their kid, and stuff's just gone bad, right? But there's this whole underlayer of like this eldritch past. There's this whole story of like all these campers and all this kind of stuff that's come to the area. There's these missionaries from like the 17 or 1800s. There's a lot more you can uncover, and it does reward you for like digging deep and kind of getting that story. But the story is non-linear, which I think is actually what makes this game pretty special. You can play this game for hundreds of hours and never actually do the story. You don't actually have to do anything. You can just play the game how you want to play it. And so the story has to be kind of light and simple because it's not holding your hand through the entire thing. So I love that. So if you're coming for a really deep story, I don't think this is going to please you. But if you're coming for something interesting and something that has some cool elements to it, attached, it's very much attached and not the main theme, but attached to your really cool survival horror cannibal murderizer simulator, it's pretty good, man, and it's enjoyable. And if you love eldritch stuff like that, and there's the hint of all that kind of stuff, you're gonna love it like me. So that's where we fall on the story. It's kind of the middle section. The next little bit of topic we want to look at is the replayability of this game. And this game, if my hours in it and the hours I've seen of people posting on our videos has anything to do with the replayability of this game, it can be played nonstop for just long periods of times, over and over in different ways, playing it single player, playing it survival based, playing it story based, playing it multiplayer in all of those kinds of ways. You can do so much trying to make it a wave defense and survive as long as we can type game. There's so many different things that you can do and find and build and interact with in this game, either solo or by yourself. Now, there's not new mechanics coming. There's not like updates coming to the game because there's a sequel coming out. So like, you know, it won't always, it will change, you know, it won't really ever change adding more stuff, but there's just so many things you can run into. And honestly, because the game isn't optimized perfectly, there's just some great moments, especially in multiplayer, that you can have with just funny stuff that happens or just these massive attacks. It's awesome. It's worth every moment, and that's just from the bottom of my heart. I've played this game multiple times through, sometimes never even getting close to like the actual story, just finding stuff and beating stuff up with my friends. So replayability, this one gets a pass for me. And then finally we get to kind of that like X factor, fun factor type deal for the game. And like I was kind of already touched on it in the previous point, this game is the one word I would use to define this game is ridiculous. There's just the premise of it and how much random stuff can happen, the attacks, the glitches, the way you can manipulate the game to just break itself, sliding down hills on sea turtle shells. There is just so much in this game that's just continually uncovered. And like, there's mechanics that aren't spelled out for you that you just find on accident sometimes. Like if you poke the ground with a stick, you can get rocks or money to shoot out of a slingshot. Like there's just so much depth and fun to this game, and I highly recommend doing it with people. It is with other people, multiplayer. It's super fun, but it just has something special about it that feels, it's that special kind of jank where you know it's not the most polished game you've ever played, but you're having the most fun. I highly recommend it. This one gets more than a pass in that X Factor's fun factor realm for me. So overall, as you can probably tell, taking all 5 of our categories, each and every one, well, I mean, got like a pass, and like, you know, graphics may have not got a pass and story might be a little light, but overwhelmingly for me, I would absolutely recommend this game in 2022 and beyond. Whenever you're watching this, there is a sequel coming out this year, so we'll see what that holds, and if it holds the greatness that this game does. I'm very, very hopeful and excited to see. But I would highly recommend, if you're thinking about getting The Forest, you're excited for the second one and you want to get into it, anything like that, you should absolutely grab this game. It even passes some of my like dumb little tests, like my hours of play and fun per dollar, right? So for every dollar I spend, I want to have at least that many hours of fun in the game. This one far surpasses it. 20 bucks, 10 bucks. I've played this game for hundreds of hours. It is absolutely worth your time. You got a sequel coming up you can invest into. It's just absolutely fun. So if you're sitting there in Steam right now with your finger on the button like, hey, should I buy this? I highly recommend you give yourself an awesome time. Click the purchase button and enjoy. But that's going to be the video today. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, and I hope you've had a great time. Before you go, make sure you slap that subscribe button right in the back of the head and leave a thumbs up so it knows you did it. And also let us know down in the comments below if you agree or if you disagree, or you found something that you find enjoyable about the game that I didn't mention here, anything like that. But until next time, everyone have a good time, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video. Hey, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. If you want some more content that we have made, make sure to check out any of the videos you see here on screen, or stop by the Potato Boat YouTube channel and check out all the cool stuff that we've made. But until then, we'll see you in the next video.